Found my gym outfit from the 6th grade and it still fits. Barely.
I need to tell you that this type of thing can be construed as really wrong.
Gary! I was just looking for the sports channel, Gary.
There's this weird idea online that the moment a show becomes, let's just say, spicy, it stops being good. Like the very second a show has service, suddenly it can't be considered good at all. Its rating gets written off as bait, trash, or something you're only supposed to watch with the doors locked. And while this certainly is the case for some shows, as it can really detract from the emotional weight of a moment, take Berserk and every adaptation removing the genuinely god-awful Violet chapters, since they essentially infantilize the main female protagonist Casca, and is her in a genuinely repetitive and cringe way before the events we all know during the eclipse. But thankfully, Miura himself in interviews agreed with the sentiment, as in his own words, "Sorry about these scenes. The head of the editorial board said once or twice that I was going too far. Today, with hindsight, I wonder if my choices were really that necessary." And in his defense, this undoubtedly came as a byproduct of him working with Young Animal, a magazine that basically functioned like a sentient magazine, but I digress. The truth is, some of the most creative, stylish, and genuinely impressive animation ever made falls into that exact category. They just absolutely own it. And while I know you'd say that back in my day, we called it I'm also talking about animation in the West. And whether people want to admit it or not, animation can be peak, not because it gets your alone, but because the same lack of restraint that leads to scenes like this can also lead to this. As a wise commenter once said on my community tab,
the existence of implies the existence of gems.
When a show is willing to be shameless, it's usually willing to be bold too.
I call it bold and brash. More like belongs in the trash!
And that's how you end up with series like Mezzo Forte, Kill la Kill, Prison School, and even something as ridiculous as Peepoodo, feeling way more memorable than half of the safe sanitized cartoons and anime that come out every season. But first, these videos by their very nature are kind of like Russian roulette, either risking demonetization or worse, termination. So if you enjoy them, be sure to subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Do you have a favorite show? Let me know, and I might even cover it next time. Peepoodo is a show that is absolutely no stranger to my channel. At this point, I almost feel like me constantly bringing it up has pushed Balak into making more content about it. To keep things short, Peepoodo is basically every questionable scene from the Doofus films, which surprise surprise, Balak actually helped work on. Editor MrGoone here. Yeah, that was a bit of a mistake. While doing research, I found out he didn't actually work on Doofus, but he did work on other shows made by the same company, and a lot of the people who worked on Doofus have collaborated with him at some point, so I wasn't completely off. Honestly, the real connection is that Balak and a lot of French animators just share the same sense of humor, which is to say, they're extremely talented, slightly unhinged, and for a lack of a better word, a little bit naughty. I guess I just wanted an excuse to show off how oddly adult the Doofus films are, despite being for kids, which I guess you could maybe consider a gem, but no, not really. Besides, the animation is absolutely gorgeous, so it's mostly just an excuse to show that off. Okay, that out of the way, back to the video. But he took that mildly uncomfortable and injected it somewhere it made sense. An adult educational cartoon, which sounds like a stupid idea at first, but with how genuinely bad the American education system is, the show actually teaches things most schools never even touch, like consent, anatomy, and basic communication. Any chance I get, I will bring up Balak, because he absolutely deserves his flowers and a seat at the animation table with Invincible's core animation team. I want to see this man's passion for drawing animated thrown into the Invincible fight segments. God damn it. Then you've got OVAs like Mezzo Forte. If you know, you know. And if you don't, you've probably heard about it in the most misleading way possible. People talk about it like it's just with plot, but that completely ignores what makes it special. The action animation is absurdly good. The choreography, the camera movement, and the timing, everything has amazing weight and speed, the kind a lot of mainstream anime never even reaches. Yeah, it has some scenes that would probably get you banned from your local movie night.
You have been banned from the Mickey Mouse Club for inappropriate behavior.
But that's kind of the point. The people making it clearly weren't trying to play it safe. They weren't worried about TV standards or mass appeal. Kill. They just made the craziest thing they wanted to make, and because of that, the animation feels raw in a way that a lot of modern shows don't. And honestly, those scenes mostly exist because the OVAs needed to be funded back then through that kind of imagery, and they've literally been cut out of some versions anyways, so no, you don't actually need to watch those parts. But if you do, you sick bastard, they're also just as gorgeously animated as the rest of the film. But then on the polar opposite, you have shows that go completely in the other direction, like Kill la Kill, which might be the perfect example of animation becoming actual peak fiction. On paper, the concept sounds incredibly dumb. Clothes giving you power? The outfits get more the stronger they are? And half of the show is people screaming while wearing on. But somehow, it works. Not only does it work, it becomes one of the most stylish, energetic anime to have ever been made by Studio Trigger. The service isn't just there to gawk at, it's part of the theme. The whole show is about shame, control, and being comfortable with yourself. And the ridiculous outfits are how the story visualizes that. When the characters stop being embarrassed, they become stronger, and when they accept how they look, they win. And on top of that, the animation just goes insane. But that's kind of to be expected with any Gainax production. It's everybody's favorite go-to when discussing an anime, and for good reason. And I would even argue that the same could be said for my all-time personal favorite. This show absolutely shouldn't work. The premise is stupid. Most of the jokes feel like they're ripped from an 80s comedy, and the this is so over the top, it literally borders on parody. Where people are wrong about this show, honestly, is that they'll say stupid, reductive things like, "Wow, people upset about Fire Force should watch this." Like it's even remotely comparable, where Fire Force essentially ruined itself by forcing into its narrative, intended for teenagers, mind you. Prison School is made purely for adults, where the narrative is basically built around for comedic purpose. Half the time, the camera focuses so hard on someone's assets, it's less gratifying and more just hilariously stupid. It's like how none of the Terrifier films, with the exception of the first film, can be taken remotely seriously due to just how silly the excessive is. It's like full-on Looney Tunes. Although in the case of Prison School, it's damn near jump-scaring you with hilariously over-the-top damn near daring the viewer to continue watching despite how uncomfortable it might get at times. But the commitment to the bit is what makes it so good. Additionally, all the facial expressions are pushed to cartoonish levels, not too different from something you'd see in a Ren and Stimpy episode, and somehow, under all the stupidity of the show, the characters actually have heart. A lot of them start out as complete and end up just wanting real relationships and genuine connection. In some ways, it's like a proto-Chainsaw Man in the way that it deals with relationships, and let's just call it tendencies. It puts way more effort into the writing and animation than the premise even deserves, and that's exactly why it's funny. This show knew exactly what it was, and didn't try to hide from it. An absolute jam in my books. And yes, I already hear you in the comments. I know the manga goes on to kind of shit the bed, but that's almost certainly because the author got bored of the series' popularity and just wanted to work on his blues manga instead. Honestly, the whole ending feels like a troll on the fans, and it's probably what we'd get if Smiling Friends were forced to make additional seasons after the creators had already said they were spent. But all that said, in my mind, the series ended perfectly with the final episode, since it kept the wholesomeness and the themes of brotherhood and relationships intact. For as risky as it gets, it genuinely feels like a show that could air on Adult Swim, just, you know, freakier.
Why won't you punish me?
And while not all trashy animation is created equally, every once in a while you get a series that rises up above the slop. Sometimes because it's so self-aware, it turns into parody, and other times because it somehow sneaks in real themes, character depth, or even life lessons behind all the bait. And honestly, I absolutely respect that. It takes real talent to make something that looks like pure on the surface, but underneath is actually smart, heartfelt, or way better written than anyone expected. That'll be all, guys, and I'll see you next week.